There we go. So good morning, everyone. Welcome to River City on Time Change Sunday. I was late getting up. Just my coffee. It's good. I'm going to stop writing introductions because Greg always steals them, does exactly what I had written down. So that's good. Thanks, Greg. We're doing a new series, Greg's right. It's called Who Cares? That guy's freaking me out because he looks a little bit too much like me, I think. I got to talk to the finance team about likeness rights or something, I don't know. It's based on the parable of the Good Samaritan in Luke 10. It's also based on a book by John Ortberg called Start Becoming a Good Samaritan. So I'm going to pray and then we're going to get going. So let's pray. Father God, we thank you so much that you've given us a space to come and to worship you and to learn about you. We thank you for our awesome music team who leads in the worship every Sunday. We pray that your Holy Spirit would be upon us, that you would give us ears to hear, hearts to understand, and minds to listen, and that you would speak through me today as I seek to preach your word. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. So a little bit of house cleaning. This is entirely my fault. I have a different version of the Bible that's going to be up there because of some things that happened this week that are my bad. So either listen to me or read the screen. Don't try to do both because that'll get really confusing. We're going to read the story of the Good Samaritan, Luke 10, 25 to 37. Then an expert on the law stood up to test Jesus, saying, "Teacher, what must I do to get life forever?" And Jesus said, "What is written in the law? What do you read there?" The man answered, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and all your mind, and also love your neighbor as you love yourself." Jesus said to him, "Your answer is right. Do this, and you will live." But the man, wanting to show the importance of his question, said to Jesus, "And who is my neighbor?" And Jesus answered, "As a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, some robbers attacked him. They tore off his clothes, beat him, and left him lying there, almost dead. It happened that a priest was going down the road. When he saw the man, he walked by on the other side. Next, a Levite came there, and after he went over and looked at the man, he walked by on the other side of the road as well. Then a Samaritan traveling down the road came to where the hurt man was. When he saw the man, he felt very sorry for him. The Samaritan went to him, poured olive oil and wine on his wounds, and bandaged them. Then he put the hurt man on his own donkey, took him to an inn where he cared for him. The next day the Samaritan brought out 2 coins, gave them to the innkeeper, and said, "Take care of this man. If you spend more money on him, I will pay it back when I come again." Then Jesus said, "Which one of these 3 men do you think was a neighbor to the man who was attacked by the robbers?" The expert in the law answered, "The one who showed him mercy." Then Jesus said, "Then you go and do what he did." So Jesus is teaching, and this guy comes up and he stands up and he asks what people have been asking for hundreds and hundreds and thousands of years. What do I do to inherit eternal life? What do I have to do to get into the kingdom of heaven? How do I get there? What's the checklist? Now, what hit me when I was reading this at home, they actually name his occupation not as expert in the law, but as a lawyer. And you got to understand, when Luke calls someone a lawyer in the first century, he's not saying that he's a lawyer in the way that we would think it is. Actually, the version that we read calls him an expert in the law. That's probably easier to understand. He's an expert in what's called Mosaic law, or the Deuterocanon, or the Levitical law. Basically, the first 5 books of the Bible contain not just the 10 Commandments in the script for the movie by the same name, but they contain like over 600 other laws that pertain from everything in life, from like mildew to when you accidentally kill an ox that belongs to your neighbor. So this guy knew all of that, like back to front, like the back of his hand, just knew it. And he's talking to Jesus, and he asks him, "How do I get to heaven?" And Jesus knows the guy knows, and he says, "What's written in the law? You know, you've read it, you're an expert. What does it say?" And he answers him, and he says that it's simple. He's almost insulted, and he says, "Love God with all your heart, mind, and strength, and love others. Love your neighbor as you love yourself." This is grade 1 Hebrew stuff. This is the kind of thing that they would have learned in Sunday school. This is not new. This is the kind of thing that an expert in the law would be expected to know without question. So he might have been a little bit insulted. And Jesus says, "Yeah, you're right. Gold star. There you go." And then the lawyer goes and does what we all do. He screws it up. And he asks Jesus, he says, and who is my neighbor? I think if Jesus would have come down, would have been sent in the 21st century, and this scenario would have happened like it did then. You guys familiar with the term facepalm? I think Jesus would have just been like, dude, you're doing so well. And then he went and asked that question. I love it, because the guy doesn't get it. The lawyer, the expert, knows the answer, but he doesn't get the answer. He wants to, and it says he wants to justify himself. He wants to make himself feel good about what he's doing. He's asking, who do I need to love? What he's really asking is, who can I let go? Who do I not need to love? So Jesus sees right through him, because that's what he's good at. And he tells him the parable that we just read, the parable of the Good Samaritan. Shane Claiborne, who is a pastor and an author, would probably recoil at me calling him a pastor. He's a little bit on the fringe of some things, but he's a great thinker. Recently wrote an article for Esquire magazine where he talks about the parable of the Good Samaritan bit, and he says that it is one of Jesus' most scandalous stories. And he's absolutely right, it is. At its core, the parable of the Good Samaritan is about a guy who gets beaten up, left for dead on the side of the road, and two religious people, two good people, completely ignore him, and someone who's on the fringes of culture and the fringes of society goes over and takes care of him. Because they're... It's just... I love the story so much because it shows us what we are. It shows that the religious are the ones who are just kind of going about their own thing. I'm in my bubble, I'm in my religious bubble, and yeah, there's stuff going on, but I'm going to ignore it and just do my thing because I'm righteous and I'm holy. So you can imagine the reaction when the hero of this story ends up being a Samaritan. If you know anything about first century Jews, they did not hang out with Samaritans whatsoever. Didn't happen. There's a map coming up, I think, soon. There it is. So, without going into the big history lesson of why, Jews and Samaritans don't like each other. The circle on the bottom there is Judea. That's where a lot of the Jews hung out. The circle on the top is Samaria. Above that, it's not on this map, but above that, there's some more of Judea as well. And what would happen is, to get from one part to the other, Jewish people, Hebrew people, would not even go through Samaria. That's how much they didn't like each other. They would actually go around by the coast or around the other way, because you just don't go through Samaria. I mean, these people believe the wrong things. They worship him properly. They worship in the wrong place. They just don't know their doctrine. They're just wrong. It's like it's kind of similar to what was happening 20, 30 years ago in Northern Ireland between the Protestants and the Catholics. Do not get along. It was actually probably worse than that. Similar Canadian context. It's probably similar to what happened late 70s, early 80s in Quebec, where if you're not Roman Catholic and you plant a church, you can go to jail for it. D.A. Carson wrote a book about his father called Confessions of an Ordinary Pastor, which is phenomenal. It's an autobiography of his father. You should totally read it. It's amazing. So Samaritan and Jews did not get along at all. So the idea that a Samaritan would help a Jew was flat out offensive to some people. They would have been just chomping at the bit to get at Jesus. And my question to you this morning is, does that sound familiar at all? Probably doesn't yet. What if I make the parable a little bit more modern? Okay? We'll modernize it. We'll say that a Christian family is traveling home on Highway 6 for a vacation late one Saturday night. They're tired, it's late, they're on vacation, it was a great vacation, and they're coming home. All of a sudden, out of the blue, the car is hit by a drunk driver. Just nudges them. He doesn't notice, he keeps going. The family's car is out of control, spins out, hits a pole. Everyone survives, but they get some injuries that have to be taken care of relatively quickly.